Hi everybody. I am recording a quick video today, and it's been a minute since my last one. I hope everybody's been staying safe and managing as best you can through the pandemic. If you follow my Instagram channel, you know that I did a whole bunch of 3D work during the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, that sort of thing. And so I thought to mix it up, I'd start to go back to drawing this year, so well, at least the beginning of the year for a while. So I needed to warm up. So I'm going to show you the first pages I did to warm up, and you'll see how rough it started. So it usually takes me a couple pages, as you'll see, to get back a couple of things. First is a sense of proper proportions. Proportions are, I would say, the most important thing to making something look interesting or attractive. And then secondly, draftsmanship and line quality. And really that's more about illustration than it is about design. And it's more of sort of a romantic idea to try and design something while also having nice line work. So it's a bit of a challenge, but I like the challenge. So I'm just going to run through these pages. So it started out just doing random cars, no project in mind. This is all just about drawing. And by the end of this second page here, I started to get back, I would say with this sketch, a little bit of sensitivity to the line work. And what this is, my favorite pen case of all time, Jiminy Light, which I've been using for actually decades now. And of course, Copic marker. I use the sketch version versus the square one. This is the elliptical one. This is just a toner one. These are just straight up ballpoint, but you'll see in a minute, actually next page, I start sketching first with a marker. That allows me to do a very, very light wash and explore proportions. But this page was all ballpoint. Inside this is not actually the Jiminy Light ink. I went through those many years ago. It's actually the refill that you can get on jet pens. And it seems to work quite well. I think it's probably a 0.7 or something, whatever's the lightest line weight. So here you see not much in the way of detailing with wheels and tires, of course, but just trying to get familiar again. And of course I like hot rods, so why not draw some hot rods. The other thing I was doing fun on this page was I was playing around with my golden section divider. And if you don't know what this is or what the golden section is, the golden section is a proportion of a rectangle. Well, you can make a rectangle out of it. It's actually not the proportion of just a rectangle. It's the proportion of one length versus another length. Let's see if I'm familiar with it. Yeah, pretty good. Got pretty close there. Anyway, it's 1 to 1.618, and that's the golden section proportion. And if you were to make a rectangle out of that, it has been tested that most people in the world find this rectangle to be the most aesthetically pleasing rectangle you can draw. And so you can use this golden section, right, 1 to 1.618, as a way to divide up your objects in a way that's pleasing. And the reason it's so pleasing is because it's the most commonly occurring proportion in nature. So if I look at my finger here, and I go like this, and look at the length of this segment, and then I look at the next segment, right, it's very close to the golden section. And then you'll see this one compared to this one. It just keeps on going and going. And so you'll find this throughout nature in the way that shells grow and plants, leaves grow and branches and all sorts of things. So it is a good thing to know about. Just look it up, golden section. And so what I was doing, I was playing with these little hot rod side view sketches. I usually start with a side view if I'm rusty and I haven't been drawing for a while, just to get a sense of proportion, because until the proportions start to come back, it's not really worth, honestly, jumping into perspective. So And also I need something to draw in perspective. Usually can discover something interesting faster in side view than I can in 3/4. So what I was playing with here was I was dividing these hot rod side views using this golden section divider. And so I have some here that are the cabin is the longer section and then the hood is the short, right? So sort of all of these follow pretty close to that. And then over here, I have the same thing going. And then I flipped it, I think on a later page. Let me just change the order of these pages. Let me advance this one. So this is after a couple pages of warm-up. So you start to see that line quality is getting better, sense of proportions are getting more attractive, more interesting. So you'll see that this is where I was really using it. So there to there, right? And then I flipped it and did it the opposite. So then I used it for the hood length as compared to the cabin. So these are all using this proportion, not exactly, but close enough, to give me a start. So long cabin, short hood, and then a set over here that were long hood, short cabin, long hood, short cabin. So you can see how I was using those dividers to get me going, and just experimenting with proportion. I'm going to drop this one back into the mix so I can keep the progression correct for you. Okay, so this is, and the paper is just a newsprint. It's just a pad of newsprint that's, it's actually pretty heavy duty. You can use marker on it a little bit, so it's slightly toned. You can see it against white. I just find it friendlier when I haven't been drawing for a while as opposed to jumping on a pure bright white piece of paper. Working on something that's got a little bit of value first, I find to be a little bit more forgiving. Allows you to draw in some very light lines before committing. And that's the thing that takes a little while to come back is the light line weight. You'll see that these are a little too strong inside there. So you don't end up with a nicer looking drawing when you're done. So it just takes a while to be conscious of that, and I have to just really force myself to be conscious of it. So I switched up from hot rods. Next page was just some spaceship designs, and these were a lot of these were drawn from memory of things that I've already designed, so they may look very familiar to past sketches, and that's because I was just trying to get my arm moving and I didn't want to spend a lot of time trying to reinvent some interesting design while also trying to do a nice sketch. So it's just about moving the arm basically. This page, you'll see I have a couple of small notes. There's a little arrow because I missed the proportions here. The height of the grill there in the front was way too high. So anytime that happens, especially when I'm just warming up, put a little note, little arrow, hey, be aware of that, think about that. So this time then I tried to pull it down a little bit. It's a little too low. So, you know, those are the things that you just have to warm up to, but you can see that now I'm starting to get into some variable line weights. And again, you see there's the light marker right here, and then it of course disappears if you were to take a picture and adjust the levels of that. You can easily get rid of that marker work. And here I'm just very loosely guessing at some perspective. So you'll see it's a 1-point perspective, so basically a side view. I just do a little offset on the other side and then add a little width throughout the whole ship. So this is like technically a 2-point, 1-point side view, side view, side view, 3/4 view. And you'll see I'm not being bashful with my line weights here. This sketch is very, very tiny. If you look at my pen or look at my thumb, right, that is a tiny little sketch. But you'll see that the line weights are quite heavy. And so I'm never bashful about trying to separate off the planes of an object using the line weight. There's another page. This is back to that hot rod using the golden section dividers, which was fun. And now I'm starting to do a little bit more design work, right? That now here things are starting to get to be almost interesting and a nice sketch simultaneously, which is, you know, always like I said, a romantic goal, but probably not very productive. Probably easier to think about one or the other. Just think about design and don't worry about the line quality, or think about just the line quality and the design is sort of whatever you get, you get. This one I was just starting to now start to think about perspective, and this is not design of anything other than just 4 wheels and some blocky shapes. But it was to sort of get me now to start to think about perspective. So it's obviously a wide angle lens effect on this one, with the lens center being right here on the vanishing point, and then distorting like it would around a half sphere, the perspective grid. 3/4 view. Didn't spend enough time mapping out proportions for this one. I would say that the hood is too short in this case. I would shorten the cabin. So you see a little arrow again. Shorten this up if I was to draw another view or do an overlay. These are the degrees of the ellipses, so if I want to do an overlay, I know which ellipse template to grab. I think these are probably all freehand with the exception of the ellipses. I always lay them in first by freehand. It's faster to establish the proportions that way, and then come back and clean them up. You can always clean them up as long as you've drawn them lightly to begin with. Switch back to Spaceships. Now I'm starting to spend a little bit more time on line weight, a little bit more time on design. I kind of liked these two at the very bottom of the page. So the next page I jump to here, and now you can start to see I'm now working in perspective. Actually there's a little 1 point. A couple of these are simpler side views, but some are even in 1 point are not that simple to get correct. And these pages are about, I don't know, A4 or 9 by 12-ish, 8.5 by 11-ish. So these are pretty small, and there's actually a lot of detail. So what I'll do is I will scan these and put them on my ArtStation account, as opposed to try and zoom in and out on the camera. But then when they're on my ArtStation, you'll be able to see all the line quality and all the constructions. So there's the vanishing point, for instance. You see there's actually quite a few guidelines. I won't do a levels adjustment when I scan them. I'll leave all the underlay sort of perspective construction, because I think that's quite helpful if you're trying to learn how to draw or freshen up on perspective. But a good perspective grid, as you can see through here, hopefully, is very, very helpful. Not a lot of detailing here, just was my first page of drawing airplanes in years, so was just to start to get comfortable with proportions again. Another hot rod, a couple hot rods across the top, and then I switched to sci-fi trucks. I love sci-fi trucks, and they're always fun to draw. And you can kind of get away with doing almost anything because it's sci-fi. Just consider proportions of wheels, realistic looking wheelbase, a cabin that looks like you could fit a person in there, a little door so they can get in and out, all that sort of thing. And then you can sort of do anything you want with the styling, of course. And a lot of these trucks, I find that I see sports cars underneath them. So and they may be like sci-fi sports cars, but if I hide the top of this one, right, that one I kind of liked this car as a sports car. So the next page I redrew this one, and I actually redrew this one a little bit as well, just to see what they might look like without the cab on top, and making them sort of classic wedge style sports cars. And that's the page I did today. But I would say this is probably the first sketch, and this is page 10. So it's really on this page that I'm starting to get back the sort of draftsmanship touch that I like to be able to do, and also simultaneously thinking about design while I'm drawing. So I'm hopefully getting closer to bridging those two together. This is the page I did this morning. I haven't recorded any of the drawings happening live. I'll do that in the coming future weeks, let's say. I can't commit to any time frame because things have been so busy with the day job. So here's a couple of sports cars, did those this morning. They were done the same way with the marker first and then a little line weight added back on top. The reason this wheel got so dark is because it sort of got away from me. I was being a little sloppy with the ellipse guides, and then I had to go back and try and fix it up. And then of course all that ever does is make this even darker and say, hey, look right here, this is where I screwed up. So that takes a while to know when to stop. And if you've made something wrong, don't draw attention to it by making it even darker. Try to just restrain and let it go and draw the attention to other areas that you might like, either on a page or within the sketch itself. So again, little four sci-fi trucks at the bottom of this page and 4 side view sports cars up here. So that's kind of about it for this video. I just wanted to show you where I'm at, getting back into it, starting to shake off the rust after a bunch of 3D work done over the last probably quarter of last year. I did a whole bunch of sci-fi vehicles, a whole bunch of sports cars, did a yacht, those sort of things. They're up on my ArtStation page if you go there, or if you want to follow along on the Instagram, that's where I tend to post stuff as it's done. And I'll try to do some sketches. You know what, nothing's new in the way that I draw these things or in the techniques that I use. So, and the perspective, of course, is perspective. That hasn't changed. So why don't you, if you're interested in me doing a live drawing session recorded, in the comments on this video, please put the subjects you're most interested in having me cover in a future drawing video, and I'll pick off of that list and do something along those lines. So thanks for watching, and hope these got you maybe at the very least a little inspired to make some of your own drawings. It's a great activity to do during the pandemic, and I have just been recently reminded of how much fun it is, so I'm trying to do more and more of this, usually every weekend. I'm able to get 4 or 5 hours a weekend, and I'll try to stick with it. It's always tough to balance everything, as I'm sure you all know. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and be well. Bye-bye.